Hello everyone, this is Jertaz. At the very beginning of my original TCG Game Boy playthrough, I had mentioned plans to perhaps do more with this game. I was someone who collected and played Pokemon cards, even back when it first came out. Originally, it was just with the neighborhood kids, without a sense of strategic insight, then later into more competitive scenes. That being said, my skill set with the card game has grown since the time this video game released, making the game a bit easier. So how do I keep this interesting? One of the first thoughts was to impose custom rule sets that would handicap me and give the opponent an advantage. Where to start though? I decided to ask around, and I ultimately decided to see if it's possible to beat the game only using psychic Pokemon, or rather, the purple eyeball symbol that typically portrays Psychic and Ghost in Gen 1, then Poison and Fairy in later gens. I won't go into the details too much, but Psychic was incredibly overpowered in Gen 1. Would that infamy flow into the card game as well? One way to find out. So the rules to this challenge will be pretty simple. My deck is not allowed to have any Pokemon outside the Psychic typing. That also means I can't play types to defensively help with weakness and resistance. It's Psychic or bust. I will also not edit the deck at all throughout the duration of the game, unless I absolutely need to in order to proceed. I must also win in the optional rival battles. These battles you can lose and still proceed, but for the sake of the challenge and proving that this is possible, I'm going to say I have to win, and if I lose, I have to default right back to the last save. Some may ask how I intend to even set up such a scenario, since you are forced to pick one of 3 starter decks, all of which seem to have little to no Psychic Pokemon. Simply, I will hack in a deck right at the start of the game using a special tool that I had found online. I promise though that this is the only time cheating will be seen, as is required for this challenge and any future challenges later down the road. Now that I got that beginning stuff out of the way, let's start with my options. For a monotype challenge like this, my main concern is having a decent attacker, with a couple of standby options to counter issues relating to weakness and resistance. When looking at my Psychic Friend options, the first one that caught my attention was the promo Mew. If this card doesn't look familiar, it was a virtual card made exclusively for the video game. It was also only obtainable via wirelessly communicating with another copy of the game, making it that much harder to obtain. Why did this catch my attention? 2 words. Mystery Attack. For 2 energy, it promises to do a random amount of damage and maybe a random effect on a basic Pokemon that doesn't need to pay to retreat. That seems too good to pass up. Well, it ended up being complete trash that you wish you can just hide under a truck. I tested this Mew card, only to realize that the random damage range appeared to be between nothing and 20 damage. As much of a sure thing as this was, it wasn't going to be the card that helped me win. Okay, switching gears, I decided to go with Mewtwo. For Psychic Pokemon, 40 damage is pretty impressive considering that the max damage output for Psychic appears to be 50 in Gen 1. Even better, its first attack lets you grab Psychic from the discard pile. That means I can power it up quickly if I play enough cards to get energy in my discard pile, which shouldn't be too much of an issue in Gen 1. Next, I wanted a Psychic Pokemon that didn't have Psychic weakness, so that I wouldn't get destroyed by the Psychic Club. Due to the narrow criteria, Gengar effectively got the auto slot into the deck. Its base form, Ghastly, also has free retreat, which could allow me to pivot to Mewtwo if I were to start with it. Gengar's power lets you move damage around on your opponent's side of the board, which can help set up knockouts for Mewtwo as well. So I decided Gengar and Mewtwo were the only Pokemon I needed, so I got the building, resulting in the deck you see on the screen now. I feel the trainers were pretty standard in Gen 1 to maximize drawing, damage output, and some minor utility to do certain things. I'm sure some people are anxious to figure out how things went. Let's start to shift gears to the actual playthrough. I'll summarize the players that caused me trouble as well as the main NPCs. My goal for the challenge was to complete it as fast as possible, so please forgive me if I rush through my turns. If this video does well, I may just decide to live stream these challenges and then recap them in later YouTube videos. Well, I discovered a problem rather early in my run with the very first fight against the fighting club trainer, Michael. Why would a fighting type player be a challenge to my psychic deck? We'll get to that. I go first with 2 Mewtwo's and a Ghastly. Turn 1, I'm able to leverage computer search to discard a psychic for a Professor Oak. Using the Oak lands me into an item finder, which I use to discard a second psychic. Just like intended, I was able to energy absorb right away to fully power up Mewtwo. I love it when things work out. Hitmonchan isn't going to be too happy. He goes and plays Defender, which reduces damage by 20 for one turn, reducing my damage from 80 to 60 for next turn, just enough to protect his Hitmonchan from knockout. It's alright, I get Hitmonchan the next turn though. Now he brings Kangaskhan up and uses Fetch to draw a card. Not too concerned. I continue to set up my bench. I'm able to oak myself into a fresh hand. This rewards me an energy removal to keep his energy down. An attack for 10? Oh dear. Kangaskhan resists Psychic. And with 90 HP, that means I'll have to hit 9 times with Mewtwo before I knock it. I really decided it's not worth the effort, and I just use Gust of Wind to bring up his other Pokemon that aren't resistant. In this case, Magmar becomes my first prize thanks to a plus power drop. However, he seems to insist on using Kangaskhan repeatedly. By dumb luck, I draw another Gust and bring up Hitmonlee, knocking it out. With my last prize left, I run out of Gust of Winds and have to deal with Kangaskhan personally. You can see me here desperately looking for some faster way to take the victory. I really don't want to sit here and tend this darn kangaroo to death. Unfortunately, I'm left with no option but to do just that. If this bores you, just imagine how I felt playing at normal speed. My only recreational pastime becomes occasionally dropping energy removal to prevent Kangaskhan from attacking me. It does pay off as he's never able to get this darnest throwing tank in the Comet Punch range. 4 energy lets him flip 4 coins and do 20 for each heads. With how lucky the computers are, it's not in my best interest to attempt that fate. Oh my gosh, please just go down already. I really hope the rest of the game isn't like this. It becomes a slow grind, but I eventually get to a point where I have a couple plus powers to boost Mewtwo's attack. Right to a point where I'm able to knock out Kangaskhan for game. I only can hope that this doesn't continue to be a problem later down the road. After that speed bump, I decided to go for the Grass Club. Grass Trainer Heather is right at the door, so I decided to face her first. I'm ready for a good fair fight against some grass. Diddle! Oh no. Just what I needed. More resistance. Even worse, Heather's starting to attack me with Diddle, and I get a bad start, and I'm unable to get a turn 1 energy absorb. Heather puts down Venonat, which I can usually take out if I can just get Mewtwo going with a Gust in hand. Finally, I get Mewtwo powered up and start attacking. Thankfully, instead of continuing to wail at me with Diddle, she decides to use Diddle's Morph attack. This attack lets Diddle randomly turn into a basic Pokemon in the deck, and it turns into Venonat, of all things. This also means it's now an easy knockout for Mewtwo. I then realize she turned her Psychic-resistant Eevee into a Jolteon. She knocks out Mewtwo, but I immediately bring up another Mewtwo and Energy Absorb. Sadly, I'm still struggling from a bad hand with limited options. I hit Jolteon for 40, but she decides to retreat Jolteon for Porygon, which is going to do absolutely nothing but stall me for 3 turns, while it plays with Mewtwo's weakness. I decide to take advantage of this to get a 3rd Mewtwo powered up. I might just need it. Strangely, she retreats Porygon and plays Mr. Fuji, which lets her shuffle Porygon back into her deck. I guess she really didn't want to see Porygon get hurt. I knock out her Venonat, only for her to retaliate with Jolteon again. This time I take Jolteon down. Now all I have to deal with is Diddle. And now we begin the painstaking task of tending Diddle to death. It feels like only a few minutes ago that I did this. Sometimes I swear that I question the life choices I make.
We dreamed of creating the world's strongest Pokémon. And we...
Failure.
Thankfully I finally draw into a Gust and take out Vanonet for last prize. How much psychic resistance will I have to deal with? After that, I face Trainer Kristen. I'm glad this game doesn't punish for no basic hands because I get a couple right away. Tangle is pretty easy to deal with, and I get a good start. Gutsy of me, but I immediately computer search away 2 psychics and search for a third for turn 1 energy absorb. This allows me to plus power KO Tangela next turn, but then she brings up Lickitung, another psychic resistant Pokemon. To make it worse, Lickitung has Tongue Wrap, an attack that both damages me and has a chance to paralyze. A paralyzed Pokemon is unable to attack or retreat for a single turn. This means my already slow damage pace is further hindered. Normal types really bite. There's no way I want to knock that thing out. I do top deck a Gust and I think of using it to bring up Tangela. However, I'm still paralyzed. It would suck if I Gust up Tangela only for them to retreat it, so I bide my time. After a couple turns though, I get sick of it and Gust up Bulbasaur in an attempt to end their horrid luck spree. In Oak and 2 builds later, I marvel over my fresh hand but decide it's best to wait it out. I hope I can attack Bulbasaur next turn and will it happen? Pass. That's exactly what I need. I take the time to get Gengar going using Computer Search and Breeder, and then I decide to wave bye-bye to Bulbasaur with the hopes that I don't get paralyzed next turn. If I don't, I can go for Tangela. Sadly, she gets to paralyze. However, I top deck Switch, so I use it to switch into Gengar and retreat back into Mewtwo, effectively removing the paralyze. Bench Pokemon cannot be affected by special conditions in the TCG, kind of like Confusion in the video game. I then Gust and plus power to knock her Tangela, 1 prize to go. She then forces me to face the cursed Lickitung again. Thankfully, I get Item Finder to get another Gust and take out her Bulbasaur for game. Another victory under my belt. It's been 3 sketchy fights now, and now I have to face the first club leader, Nikki. I don't expect much trouble from her deck. It doesn't play blasted normal types after all. I start with Mewtwo, and she goes first with Oddish and paralyzes me. This does not bode well for my turn 1 agenda. I begin pulling as much as I can from my deck to see what my options are. With enough Psychic in hand and Computer Search, I decide to get my Switch card for my bench Mewtwo. Now I can Energy Absorb. Unfortunately, she paralyzes me again. The first couple of turns, I just wait for her not to paralyze me. My hand is pretty crappy, so I dump it for a fresh new hand. This gets me the energy removal to deny her energy. Maybe with enough luck, she'll not have the energy to paralyze me again. Of course, she has the energy and succeeds in paralyzing me for a 3rd time. I just rinse and repeat the same step of removing her energy and renewing my hand. All I can do is hope for the best that the computer's luck runs out. Going to her turn now. Wait, no energy pass? Awesome sauce. It's time to play it. I was so excited that I misplayed going for Gengar as I discard my only Pokemon to get the trader, leaving me with no Pokemon to use said trader. Oh well, another pass. Fantastic. I get Gengar out and finally take Oddish for my first prize, on to Oddish number 2. She still seems insistent on stalling me with Paralyze, so I start to use item finders to recycle the Switch in my discard pile. This is why you play Switch, because of this. Oh well. Switch into Gengar, retreat back to Mewtwo, and knock. Oddish number 3 is out and I'm paralyzed again. Funny enough, it was a sigh of relief when she evolves Oddish into Gloom and poisons me instead. I will happily accept taking damage between turns. Finally, I can attack. I hit Gloom, but Poison eventually takes Mewtwo out. So I get Mewtwo number 2 ready. She poisons me again, but I manage to get a second Gengar out. This gives me the ability to use 2 curses now instead of 1. I decide to move 20 off Gloom to another Pokemon before knocking Gloom. She brings up Oddish and passes, so I plus power to knock Oddish. Now it comes up Bulbasaur. She heals to 20, I move from Curse, then passes. I know Mewtwo will pass from poison this turn, so I punter for a bit the next move. In order to save Mewtwo, I decided to computer search for an item finder in order to recycle a switch. I used the switch to heal poison from Mewtwo before knocking Bulbasaur, hoping that she has no way to hurt Mewtwo this turn, and she just passes. It's game. Bulbasaur falls and I take my 6th prize. Funny to think I had an easier time with her than her lackeys. Now on to Electric Leader Isaac. I hope to continue to have smooth sailing like his underlings, but I immediately shudder upon being greeted with Kangaskhan. I don't even have a great start to deal with it. I'm forced to use Ghastly to stall for time until I draw Mewtwo and try to power it up. Mewtwo becomes my next draw, so I hope that saves me. Isaac seems more interested in drawing cards than attacking, giving me time to manually power up Mewtwo. Obviously, this process is kind of drawn out. I know he's building an Admiral bench of Pokemon too, which worries me as well. It's also worrisome that he has so much cards now. Once Mewtwo is powered up, I have a couple gusts, so I decide to drag up Magneton, a significant threat. Desperate to get more resources, I decide to go for another bill, which gives me a way to get Gengar out. Haunter is a Pokemon that I can trade away for Gengar. I already have Breeder in hand, which lets me skip the mid-stage evolution. Finally, I can start setting up damage. I curse damage to Kangaskhan before knocking Magneton. Finally, first prize. He brings up Kangaskhan and just continues to fetch for the Holy Grail. Whatever. I gust up a Voltorb and knock it for another prize. Again, he brings up Kangaskhan. I look for a new hand, which gets me a gust. I strike his other Voltorb for knock. I think about Ulking, but decide I want to evolve Haunter first. Surprisingly, he promotes Kangaskhan again. It's a horrifying thought that he probably would stop me if he just took the time to power it up. I really can't hit it. After some thought, I decide to computer search for another Gus and take out his Magnemite. And just like that, 2 prizes remain. Like Jason Voorhees, Kangaskhan comes back. As annoying as ever, I look for a new hand, then item finder for another Gust, which forces up his Electabuzz. No matter how I look at it, it'll still be a 2-hit knock. I just go for that, hoping he doesn't stop me next turn. He tries to Potion Electabuzz, but I have plus power to do just enough for knock. My hand is but a lone oak, so I use it to refill my hand. At this point, I see his VIP, Kangaskhan. I item finder for another Gus and take out Voltorb. And that's how we beat Isaac. I find it funny just how many times I gusted Kangaskhan away that game. At this point, your rival, Ronald, comes out to play. His fight starts pretty standard. I don't get an immediate Mewtwo start. I try really hard, even dropping an Oak. I sift through my options, but nothing is really clicking together this run. In the end, all I managed to do is get 2 energy, so I attach 1 and pass. Cubone's first attack, Snivel, sums up my feelings so far about this run. Going into my second turn, I do get Gengar, but I'm worried that I don't see the energy to attack next turn. Cubone again sums up my feelings with tears and snivels. I make a last-ditch effort to get an energy when Oak pulls through. Snivel reduces damage, so I don't manage to one-shot to Cubone despite its low HP. One last Snivel from Cubone, and I am in control again. I think about knocking Cubone, but I look at his board and scheme something more sinister. I'll tell you what it is later. For now, I'm going to gust up Growlithe and damage it. Ronald goes and passes. Now I can make my play. I curse damage to Cubone from Growlithe to knock it before then cybering Growlithe for a second knock. Going back to Ronald, he brings up Squirtle and tries to paralyze me, but fails. Squirtle's 40 HP falls easily to Cyburn. Ronald brings up Cubone and simply snivels at his upcoming defeat. I'm too heartless though. I drop 2 plus powers and one-shot Cubone anyway. For Rival, he didn't really stand much of a chance. My next chosen destination is the Fire Club. Sadly, things start off awful as the first underling, John, starts with a Tauros, another psychic-resistant Pokemon. I think of how to best use this hand. For now, I prioritize Mewtwo. Trying to buy time, I gust up Rattata while I try to power up. I'm also hoping he drops a non-resistant to Pokemon in the meantime. On my turn, I see a way to get Mewtwo going, so I free retreat Ghastly and go for the Energy Absorb. Still not feeling confident though. This may have been a mistake as Rattata is able to hit me for 20 damage at a time. Mewtwo is now being overpowered by mere Purple Rat. Strongest Pokemon indeed. I am able to get Gengar out, but it's really not going to help me in this situation. He also gets a surprise plus power to knock out Mewtwo a turn earlier than expected. This leaves me with a lone on-powered Gengar against two capable attackers. I really struggle to figure out the next move. John, sadistically, gives me nothing to really knock out, so I start to accept a loss at this point. I mean, what deck do I even do here? Most of my energy is already in my hand, making it forfeit if I Oak. And I already have so much resources in my discard pile already. Even if I do get Mewtwo out, this guy simply isn't dropping anything manageable. There's nothing to gust up. Gengar isn't powered up, and even if it was, it'd only do 0 damage anyway. Another problem is my diminished deck. I just don't see a way out of this mess. I try to remove his energy and hope he loses an energy attachment. I don't have enough deck to 10 his board to death. At current, I would concede the match if it was programmed in. Unfortunately, it's not, so I must proceed. Who knows, maybe something will happen. I'm only kidding myself. I only have 3 cards left in my deck and 4 prizes to take. It's not happening. Maybe I can take at least 1 to save some level of dignity. Well, he seemingly dashes that dream when he knocks out Mewtwo, leaving me with only Gengar left. All I can do now is move damage around and put 10 damage on the bench due to resistance. Meanwhile, Tauros has energy and play to wreck me. I can pure search for the last card in my deck and put myself out of my misery. If I can't draw a card next turn, I lose my deck out. The first match ends with me running out of deck and thus losing my deck out. I sit for a while thinking how I can possibly win, and I decide I just need him to get a worse start. Game 2, he starts with a lone Doduo. It's colorless, but resists fighting since it's more of a flying type than a normal type. This might be the chance I need. I turn 1 energy absorb with a plus power in my hand, hoping he doesn't get a basic, and he doesn't. I struggled with him so much last game only to beat him like this. Revenge is pretty sweet sometimes. Against player Jonathan, things seem to start off pretty well. I'm able to set up against his Vulpix. I have to get a bit creative with Mewtwo by dumping 1 Psychic with Oak, then using a Pure Search to discard a second in order to search for a third. I mean, it works, right? This allows me to use plus power to take Vulpix the next turn. However, he soon retaliates with Jigglypuff, a psychic resistant Pokemon with an attack that reduces more damage. I'm left with no option but to wait until I get Gust of Wind to fight around it. In the meantime, I think my plan will be to do what I can against Jigglypuff. With an Expand, Mewtwo's attack is zeroed out, thus I need energy removals to prevent an Expand attack from happening, or plus power to boost my damage to 10. Both are very slim chances, plus all I can do until I get a more efficient target. That is, if one shows up. He does plop down a second Vulpix. Now all I need is a Gust. My attempts at energy denial are evidently failing. These computers play way too much energy in their deck to make this a consistent strategy. I managed to calm my deck enough to get Gengar out. Gengar isn't going to help me much against this pink spherical tank though. At some point my hand becomes nothing but plus power. I think of using them, but it wouldn't be a decisive knockout, making them feel wasted. I do finally get Gust and use it to bring up Vulpix. However, I spare 1 shine because it has no energy. Gengar can curse a bit of damage next turn off Vulpix to Jigglypuff, helping me in taking it out from the bench. Next turn, I'm over my options. I could take Vulpix now since I have an Art Gust, or keep Vulpix active to curse more damage around. I ultimately decide to take out Vulpix. Of course he brings back Jigglypuff. He also will remove my energy this time around. I pick Pidgey for my next Gust victim due to his high attack cost. I don't have the energy to replace what he removes, so I energy absorb. He pulls a Blasted Switch to save Pidgey and knocks Mewtwo, ending my first attacker. I do have a second Mewtwo though, but still not enough energy. This forces me to use energy absorb a second time. Now I feel like I'm in the same situation I was in before. I do have Gust, but decide this isn't the opportune time to play until I'm ready. I just pass and get hit again. This time, I feel more confident inside the Gust of Growlithe. 60 HP on the Pupper is ideal for me to stack Cyburn damage, which I can curse to the bench. Jigglypuff is now Wigglytuff, which is horrifying. I do not want to see that thing become active. Is it possible? I just pass. To my horror, he plays Switch and promotes Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is a strong card in Gen 1 with his Stew the Wave attack. It does more damage for every Pokemon that is on the bench. At least it's not expanded anymore, so I can at least do 10 to it. 20 damage already on Growlithe. Let's move 20 to Wigglytuff using both Gengars. Drop plus power. Cyber now does exactly 20. You know, they actually work. He retaliates by taking out my Mewtwo with a Lickitung. I'm so close to victory, yet I feel so far. His Lickitung is going to keep paralyzing me, while I can do little damage back. I'm down to 0 cards in deck. Last turn and I'm paralyzed. Oh well. I deck out. Here's I'm going to have to luck out like I did against John. Okay, game 2 against Jonathan. He starts with Vulpix again. And I go second. Gengar did somewhat help with Curse last time. Let's try to get it out earlier this time. As for Mewtwo, Item Finder can get a Psychic in the discard pile. I can then try to Hail Mary for an Oak with the rest of the setup. Well, swing and a miss. No energy or draw cards. This is the deadest hand ever. I can literally do nothing with this except pass. Next turn, I can bring her into Gengar. I have no damage to move around though, and still nothing powered up. Again, I can only pass the turn off. This gives him enough time to get energy on the board to pummel me with Vulpix. Due to confusion status, I decide to active Mewtwo as a lost cause and give up on setup. I dropped a second Mewtwo and begin powering that one up. It'd be great if I can have it manually powered up and knock Vulpix with a plus power before Foxy can confuse it. It figures that now I'm drawing all the Psychics. Next turn, I just need to hope for a way to bench the active Mewtwo. I managed to top deck an Oak, which may just help me with that. And computer search. Help, the card I need is in deck. I eventually get a Switch, which I use to promote that Mewtwo. Combo with the plus power, I'm able to get the first prize of the game despite a horrible start. Thankfully, he seems more interested in using his Fire Pole this time around. I might actually have a shot. I continue to attack with the hopes he doesn't get a Jigglypuff out. Worried he may get one out, I think of how I want to handle it and what fortifications I need just in case. At some point, I decide I don't need to worry about it, as I'm so far ahead. Nothing he really brings up is posing even a significant threat now. Pidgey with his 40 HP non-psychic resistance goes down easily enough. Vulpix has 50 HP, so I'll need plus power. Wait, what? He drops super energy removal? A trainer that discards 2 of my energy for 1 of his? Mewtwo can't attack now. Fine, I'll fix this. Recycle the Switch for Gengar, plus power. Then curse 10 onto the active Vulpix. That's 50 for last prize, which secures me the victory. All that remains of the Fire Club now is Leader Ken and his Fire Charge deck. The game starts and I immediately notice he plays Chansey. Now, let me talk about Chansey for a bit. Not only is it a Pokemon that resists Psychic, but it also has 120 HP. 120 HP is the max HP a Pokemon can have in Gen 1. And this happens to be a basic. To make things worse, its first attack, Scrunch, gives a 50-50 chance of nullifying my attack for a turn. And his second attack, Double Edge, is capable of one-shotting Mewtwo. I hope this explains why my heart sank upon seeing such a happy face. To further taunt me, he uses computer search and gets a second Chansey. No sir, I refuse. I am gussing up Magmar. I am computer searching Psychic Wave for an Oak and using that Oak. Hoping for a good set of cards. This hand is meh. Discard more Psychics and replay Oak. Opening hand, take 3 now. Fine, this is acceptable. Let's get that Psychic onto Mewtwo and Energy Absorb. That Magmar needs at least 2 energy to attack, so he can only pass. I'd like to prioritize getting Gengar over plus power to knock Magmar. Since he didn't power it up anyway, I'm in no rush to knock it out right away. After a couple turns, Magmar goes down, but now Ken has a Jigglypuff and Tauros on the board. There's nothing good to gust up, so I'm left with tending his active Chansey to death. Thankfully, he can't draw into energy to Scrunch. Although I must say seeing him with 1 fire lingering on that Chansey is leaving me more anxious than a babysitting minion. Once he does decide to attach, things will go from bad to worse really quick. Maybe it won't happen. but I'm immediately in a world of pain once he does. My slow, weak 10s quickly turn into zeros. Mewtwo might as well be using Splash. Thinking over my options, if Chansey is going to go for Double Edge, it does 80 damage to itself in recoil. So I decide to bank on that and leave Chansey with 40 damage. When Chansey goes over 40, I use Curse to move the damage to a bench Pokemon to set up future knockouts. Knowing how slow the strategy will be, I decide not to chip away at my deck further with unnecessary draw. I know this is a long shot, but it was all Ken gave me to work with. Of course, this is all dependent if Ken goes for the Double Edge. For all I know, he will never go for it and stall me out. The potential does exist he drops a non-resistant Pokemon too, but it's all seemingly unlikely. Come on, Ken, just do it. You're making the audience bored. They came for action. Yeah? I'm just trying to fill in time here. This is absolute misery. Just like I expected, he does eventually go for a Double Edge and knocks us both out. I promote Gengar and he promotes Jigglypuff. Not what I hoped for. I retreat back into Mewtwo and Energy Absorb, leaving me with 4 energy. At this point, he evolves into Wigglytuff and does the wave. I try to guss up his other Chansey and try and knock out his Wigglytuff from the bench using Curse. All I can say is that the process was slow and painful. If you haven't seen enough Mewtwo v Chansey, here's a bit more of it, except the strategy has changed. I don't want him to Double Edge. I want him to keep scrunching so I can Curse damage to Wigglytuff. I don't know how this will play out though. That is a double colorless on Chansey, so energy removal may stall for a couple of turns. At least, I hope. It would take at least a couple turns for him to re-energize Chansey. That gives me a couple more turns to Curse Wigglytuff. It only has 30 HP left, so this is very close. I do get 10 more onto Chansey. However, Ken gets 1 more energy on Chansey too and starts scrunching again. I have 10 more damage to Curse and 20 more damage to do now. Please, Chansey, I just need a little more damage. My attempt to remove energy doesn't work this time around. He just reattaches and succeeds in Scrunch again. I can't do much and he just scrunches yet again. Oh, forget this. Against my better judgment, I decide to drag Tauros up and try setting up kills on that. But Tauros is far more effective attacker than Chansey and takes out my Mewtwo. That's with just a Gengar. It only becomes a matter of time until Tauros takes that out too. On the bright side, I take out Wigglytuff at least. Now Tauros is the main threat on campus. My play area is only 2 Gengars and 1 Ghastly. This isn't to set up to fight this attacker either. All I can do is tend to the bench until something better comes around. I also don't want Tauros to have 3 energy because its other attack hurts a lot. Arcanine is something I can hit, but it will destroy me when it becomes active. Dang it, let's just do it. I drag up Arcanine and hit it with Gengar's attack, hoping for the best. Going into his turn, he quickly knocks out Gengar. I promote Ghastly out of ready attackers. At this point, I run out of deck and Ken wins. Now, just like John and Jonathan, you might expect me to immediately retaliate with a victory. However, defeat falls upon me again, and again, and again. Ken will often choose to stall me out with Jigglypuff, which is able to heal what little damage I can do, or Chansey with its absurd amount of HP. I know he has fire Pokemon in his deck, but the luck always favors him just having an arsenal of colorless Pokemon. After several tries, I was at a loss. I started to rethink my deck. Is Ken even possible with this deck? Should I start over? If so, what should I play instead? I looked over my options, and what appeared to be a potential help would be the Lilipad Mew. Although its power, Neutral Shield, protects it from evolved Pokemon, which would prove useful against Wigglytuff, I was more interested in its attack, Psyshock, which gives it a chance to confuse for just a single energy. A confused Pokemon has to flip a coin before every attack. If they flip tails, the Pokemon hits itself for 20 and the turn is over without an attack. With a little luck, Ken can get a few unlucky coin flips on confusion and do most of the work in knocking himself out for me. Well, looking at the actual game data, looks like this Mew paralyzes instead of confuses. Not understanding the inconsistency with the English scan, I delved into this. It appears Lilipad Mew was mistranslated when it was moved into English markets and was always meant to paralyze. This mistake becomes more evident when you look at the reprint for Lilypad Mew from the Evolution set 15 years later, which clearly has the proper wording of the attack. For the second time, Mew has failed me. Alakazam could confuse, but that's a stage 2 with 3 energy. The more evolutions you add to a deck, the more inconsistent a deck can be, as you're bound to get mismatched evolutions in your hand. Still attached to the things that Gengar has helped with? I wasn't about to sacrifice it, and I wasn't about to add inconsistency of playing both. Drowsy was the last confusion option I saw, but I still needed 2 energy and a coin flip. While thinking through this, I continued to play Ken, suffering frustrating defeat after defeat. But then, I finally got the luck I needed. I start with Mewtwo and 2 Ghastly. I go first. Ken manages to start with a Tauros. I dump 2 Psychics with Computer Search and decide not to be greedy and just get the 3rd Psychic to guarantee the turn 1 Energy Absorb. Ken attaches energy and passes. I remove the energy and attack for 10. Ken attaches again. Reminder that Tauros is attack capable at 2 energy. I get a Haunter and attack for 10. Already this feels hopeless. He potions my damage away, then attacks for 30. I hit for 10 again. Ken decides to go for Rampage, which does 20 damage plus an additional 10 for every damage counter on Tauros. However, a coin needs to be flipped, and Tauros is confused if Tails. And he flips Tails, confusing Tauros. I item finder for Bill. I luckily get an Oak and use it for a new hand. I realize that a lucky coin flip could result in Tauros being knocked out if I do enough damage this turn. So I plus power and attack for 20, leaving it with 30 left. They attack and flip Hess for confusion. I lose Mewtwo and immediately promote Haunter. I Computer Search for Gengar and Evolve. At this point, I become invested in setting up damage on the bench Jigglypuff with Dark Mind, still hoping they will flip Tails of Tauros. I remove an energy from Tauros and hit Jigglypuff for 10. Tauros retaliates and Tails, thank goodness. Tauros hits itself for 20. That's just what I needed. I curse damage to Tauros for knock. They bring up Jigglypuff. I decide to hit Growlithe for 10. Just in case someone that's Arcanine out to play. Not wanting to see Wigglytuff, I start cursing the damage to Jigglypuff while Ken is focused on powering up Growlithe. He does evolve to Arcanine and starts to heal Jigglypuff. I Oak, hoping for a better option. Not sure what I'm looking for. I get a couple energy removals and decide to strip Arcanine of its energy. At this point, I struggle to decide what to do. I want to take out Jigglypuff, but realize it's out of my grasp now. That figures that 2 different prints of Jigglypuff would stall me in slightly different ways. I'm going to have to switch things around if I want to keep the pressure on Ken. I decide just to pivot to Mewtwo and get it powered up. The downside of this is that I don't have the energy to attack with Mewtwo. That's the beauty of Energy Absorb though. Ken has no response to this and gives me the turn back. I see Jigglypuff's attack does 20 to itself, so I just get 30 on Jigglypuff so it knocks itself out if it goes for that attack. Jigglypuff elects to heal instead though. That being said, I decided to curse more damage to Jigglypuff, remove the last energy from Arcanine, then plus power to do 20 for a knockout on Jigglypuff. Ken brings up Growlithe. I dent the Growlithe, and Ken retreats for Chansey. I gust up Arcanine and hit it. He tries to potion Arcanine, but I continue to hit it. With the amount of energy on it, it's essentially a free prize. Ken can't really retreat either due to high retreat. I knock out Arcanine and he brings up Chansey again. I'm over my options at this point. I decide just to get another Gust and try to knock out the Magmar. With a plus power, it would be a one-shot. However, I don't think I can meet that goal. I can get a Gengar at the ready though, just in case. I get 40 damage on Magmar and Ken passes. I now have 2 curses at my disposal, so I move 20 from Magmar to the bench Growlithe before knocking Magmar too. Ken brings Chansey up again and decides to scrunch after scarily powering it up to double edge range. I do have another Gust and choose to bring up Magmar and knock it, and We've won. Oh my goodness. I was getting so frustrated after so many failed attempts. It was exciting to finally see things go my way. In the end, Turtle's just hitting itself for confusion, and a couple old-time gusts was all I really needed to take him down. Although it helped having a couple fire Pokemon I could knock as well. With a sigh of relief, I decided to move on to the Psychic Club. I went into this club not knowing what to expect. I think it will mostly fall on who manages to set up first, and Mewtwo is extremely fast with the right hand. For the most part, I was right. Once I established a pretty fresh Mewtwo, things would just kind of fall into place. What was the largest problem I faced with the Psychic Club? Murray, the leader, doesn't want to actually fight anyone unless they have 4 medals. What a snob. I was so pumped after beating Ken that I forgot Psychic wasn't actually my next stop. Well, I may as well work on the Science Club next. I expect a lot of poison and paralyze, so using the switch will be key, I feel. I know a lot of their Pokemon will be weak to Psychic as well, but I won't be mutually weak to them like I was at the Psychic Club. So how did Leader Rick go? I start with Ghastly while he starts with Mewtwo. Thankfully, Ghastly isn't weak to Psychic, but Mewtwo is weak to Ghastly. So I decided to expand on the start. I don't really have any other options with this hand. At least immediately, I'm not keen to dump anything with Item Finder, even if it meant more draw opportunity. Ghastly is doing okay for now, even knocking Mewtwo. Grimer starts to paralyze me. For now, I just try to get damage on it. I'm banking that eventually I can draw on a switch, which will help me if Paralyze becomes a hurdle. So far, the luck seems pretty balanced. Ghastly is free to get a shot in on Grimer. I will say I never intended for Ghastly to ever be the MVP in any of these matches. I guess Grimer being weak does help things a slight bit. I'm in no real rush to move things along until I can get Mewtwo powered up. I think this game will be just about over once that happens. Surprisingly, Ghastly is able to take out Grimer. The second Grimer does take out Ghastly, but I just take this as a chance to get Mewtwo set up. I still don't have access to the third energy, so I use Energy Absorb to recover the energy Ghastly used. The darn Grimer does paralyze me though. Still don't switch, I pass. Rick gets a few lucky hits and keeps paralyzing me. Once I get a computer search, I decide to pull off an expensive combo of switching out of Paralyze by playing Item Finder to use Switch twice. This requires me to dump a ton of cards, making it almost worthwhile holding them for so long. After that, I'm ready to wallop his Mewtwo with a solid 80 due to weakness. He promotes Grimer and attempts to paralyze me. It fails though. This Grimer falls easily again thanks to weakness. Oh look, he has the same Mewtwo. Well, had. Another Grimer spawn comes up and succeeds in paralyzing the Mewtwo. Anyone who has paid attention should know what comes next. Mewtwo doesn't care about paralyze. And I Item Finder switch combo out of it for the final knock. That gives me my 4th medal. So now I'll try to go for Murray. I anticipate Murray will be painful because, well, he plays a ton of tanky normal Pokemon and so few Psychic Pokemon despite being, well, a Psychic leader. In addition, Alakazam, his signature Pokemon, allows him to move damage around as much as he wants, effectively nullifying my Gengar's curse if he gets it out. For Gen 1, Alakazam and Chanseys was a pretty decent combo deck, as it was able to tank a lot of attackers by mitigating damage to the Chanseys. How will this go? I go first with Mewtwo and immediately get faced with Kangaskhan, and Chansey is on the bench. At least he may start fetching into a Psychic Pokemon. My setup is kind of crappy, forcing me to manually power up Mewtwo. Not like I could do much once it's powered up. It doesn't take me long to get Mewtwo going, and I decide just to 10 away while I can. Sadly, I have Gus, but no real option to attack anything. Murray is trying to go for Comet Punch, but I try to remove energy to buy some time. I desperately try to keep his energy down, not wanting to get attacked, but it feels like a losing battle. He starts to remove my energy, but I really don't care. I can just absorb the energy back on. Eventually, I give up the Kangaskhan Comet Punch Tug of War and just gust up Chansey, hoping I don't get scrunch locked in the process. He retreats back to Kangaskhan and starts the Comet Punch. I get it for 60, which is an awful hit. I gust up Chansey again, Obviously, it'd be my preference at this point to get Kangaskhan on the bench as long as I can, lest it punch me into oblivion. And then I get Gengar out, but I don't really know what to do with it. I'm nowhere near knockout range on anything. He has yet to drop a psychic Pokemon yet either. He elects to start scrunching to stall me out. It beats the alternative, I guess. For now, he's not wailing on me. I could try the same tactic when met with Chansey of cursing damage off of it to the bench. Him getting Alakazam to move damage around would be fatal to that strategy. He seems to like getting heads with Scrunch anyway. I can't win this way. Finally, he retreats into Mr. Mime, but takes Mewtwo. Mr. Mime's ability is interesting. Essentially, any attack that does more than 20 damage to it will be 100% nullified. That means I can't use Mewtwo. I decide for now to Gust up Chansey and start to use Curse to knock out Mr. Mime from the bench. How can I not stare at that happy face now? I've had to stare at it for so long now that I think I'm starting to get Stockholm Syndrome. You can imagine this takes a lot of time to perform. At least the damage needed to knock Mr. Mime is already on the board. I just need to move it. If I can keep Chansey in range to knock itself out with Double Edge, that'd be great too though. It's a surprise to think I can pull that off despite the number of heads he's getting with that attack. I curse enough damage to knock Mr. Mime. Not seeing any Gust in sight, I decide to start cursing his Abras before they evolve. 30 HP is pretty manageable. Murray seems pretty invested in scrunching, which is just what I need as it gives me more time to go for Abra. I must say that it's nerve-wracking. He can just randomly choose to evolve them at any second, then I'd really have a fight on my hands. I just have to hope for the best at this point. Let's just try not to think of it, okay? I knocked the first Abra. Now I just need to focus my attention on a second Abra. 3 more turns of Curse, I guess. Nothing but the most exciting card games here. He gets another Mr. Mime out, which I need to be careful of. I still think Project Abra is the priority, however. He decides to retreat and Common Punch with Kangaskhan again. He manages to flip 2 heads for a painful 40 damage. Could be worse. I, again, Gust up Chansey and just try to do as much damage as I can, so I have more damage to use with Curse. That is, having enough damage to knock Abra. If I can prevent Alakazam, I actually have a chance. I managed to knock his second Abra. It was at this point that I kind of realized I just don't have the resources to get my last prizes. Thankfully, he has less deck than me, so I decide to attempt victory by deck out. I decided to curse damage on the Mr. Mime and reduce his attackers. He starts to flip a lot of heads with Scrunch though, preventing me from further damage. That's mostly fine though. He retreats Chansey. Again, seeing Kangaskhan active fills me with dread. In a twist of fate though, he only gets 1 heads for 20 damage, leaving Mewtwo with 10 left. Let's not risk another attack though. And pure search for Gust and bring up Chansey again. If I can keep Chansey active, the deck out dream is alive. To prevent boredom, I still attempt to knock Mr. Mime. It's a good idea to deny Chansey energy in case of Double Edge as well. I may even get lucky and not see a Scrunch. That fails though and I run out of damage to finish Mr. Mime. Hey, a Tails. That's just what I need. Thank you, Chansey. Eventually I do get enough damage to knock Mr. Mime, but now what do I do? He retreats Chansey and manages to knock me with Comet Punch. He takes out Mewtwo, but it doesn't really matter anymore. He no longer has a deck, and I just need to pass for victory. Honestly, I didn't expect to first try beat him, but I'll happily take this outcome. All that remains is rock, fighting, and water. I actually feel pretty confident about these last 3 clubs. But first, I have to fight with Rival 2. Just like last time, he doesn't put up much of a fight. At least, initially. I mean, look at his start. Putting Hitmonchan up against me is just asking for defeat. I don't manage to get a fast setup though, giving him time to stack damage. Once I can Cyburn though, oh boy, it's gonna hit like a truck. He does take a lesson from Murray and uses Mr. Mime to wall me. I don't have Gengar out yet, nor does he have Chansey. I have to be more creative this time around. Eventually I decide I can improvise and use Gassy and knock it as it'll do 20 with weakness. Mr. Mime goes down to Haunter, but Ronald has Tauros. As I have learned today, Tauros is not fun to deal with unless I can get to confuse itself. That strategy isn't exactly what I'd call consistent though. Gengar isn't going to help. It's better if I can pivot to Mewtwo. I already have the energy I need in discard pile for Energy Absorb. I think the main objective is to press energy removal hard to keep Tauros out of attack range. Something else to attack would be nice though. He drops Hitmonlee, so I decided to get a quick prize with Gust. I just need 6 turns to knock Tauros. Can I do it? So far, it seems to be going well. I'm not getting any energy removal, which worries me. At least he's not dropping energy, which is helpful. There is plenty of time for that to change. Every turn feels like eternity when you are just hitting for 10 a turn. I think I have it though. He seems to run out of energy and Tauros just goes down with much of a fight. But now he has Kangaskhan. I gust up and knock out Doduel and he thankfully drops Jinx. I have 1 prize left and all I just need to do is get a Gust for game. I do what I can and just dent damage on the Kangaskhan so I can at least set up other Pokemon for knockout. It appears that once again we are playing the long game. Nothing is in immediate danger of getting knocked out, unless I can somehow gust up Jinx in the near future. Oh well. Doduel has the least HP and can be annoying if it evolves into Dodrio. Dodrio has the power of making retreat cheaper. This would reduce my options to lock a Pokemon active if I need to resort to such a tactic. Never mind, he got Dodrio out. I draw Item Finder and use it to recycle a Gust for Jinx, and that is game. I decide to fight the Rock Club next. Honestly, don't anticipate much resistance from them. In fact, Gengar resists fighting. First though, I need to take out the last Fighting Club player, Chris. Based on his start, I would never imagine he was part of the Fighting Club, as he starts with 2 bulky normal types. I just hope he has some fighting types I can gust. I spend my turn setting up Mewtwo. The early energy absorb happens, but it takes a bit of work. Force me to dump some plus powers to get an Oak. I can computer search again, dumping 2 Psychics. I really struggle to comprehend what to search for. Nothing really helps me, to be honest. I just grab energy removal, may need it later. He does drop Hitmonchan, but then paralyzes me. I gust up Hitmonchan and hope he doesn't retreat. And he doesn't. I knock Hitmonchan after disrupting his energy. Chris retaliates with using Tauros, which is now in attack range. Not exactly what I want to see, but predictable. Neither Tauros nor Lickitung is a good fight for Mewtwo. I just have to hope he drops something else. Of course, this damage stacks up fast. I'm likely to lose Mewtwo at this rate. Tauros starts to become a problem though as my energy gets whittled away before Mewtwo gets knocked. I power up my second Mewtwo. He attacks but confuses himself with his own attack. I drop enough plus powers to put Tauros 20 from knockout. Before I attack, I double check to see if there's anything else I can do before I play this gamble. Hoping he flips tails and he doesn't, and I lose Mewtwo. I bring up Gasway and hope for tails next time. I can't believe this is what the game has resorted to. Heavily on a coin flip to knock Tauros out. Again, he flips heads. I only have Gengar left. The luck this computer is getting now, it figures. If I do draw in the Mewtwo. Again, he flips heads for confusion. He only has 1 prize left, and I know it's now or never. It's game loss for me if he flips heads this time. Will he do it? No. He doesn't, and I lose. Whatever. Maybe he'll actually be more unlucky next time. Going into this again, he starts with Mankey. I get Mewtwo set up. I probably overthink my turn. I was so desperate to see if there's any other way to beat him this turn, but nothing was really clicking together. At the very least, Energy Absorb is laughably easy with this play. In the end, that was all I went for, praying for no Pokemon drops next turn, but he gets Hitmonlee in play. I knock Mankey. He brings up Hitmonlee. I attack and I win. That went so much better. I had no real issue with any of the Rock Club members, but will Gene put up a challenge? I honestly doubt it. He starts with Rhyhorn while I start with Mewtwo. Looking at my options and well, there's nothing there. I have no energy to power up Mewtwo or draw cards. Thankfully, Rhyhorn can't immediately hurt me. At least early on. Rhyhorn does have an attack that can ravage my ability to consistently attack. If I'm going to be stuck powering up Mewtwo manually, however, that's not a threat. Once Rhyhorn does get 3 energy though, it can start doing damage. Mewtwo should be able to outdamage it though. If I can get the energy that is. I managed to get Gengar out, but I'm still lacking in energy. What a painful start. Meanwhile, Gene is starting to slowly power up Rhyhorn to pummel me. Unfortunately, Gene does get a Rhyhorn powered up and Dense Mewtwo as I draw into my second energy. I decide it's not worth it to power up Mewtwo and go for Gengar. Mewtwo should be able to take a couple more hits at least. I bring up Gengar and get another energy as Rhyhorn knocks out Mewtwo. At this point, I feel pretty comfortable. Gengar resists fighting as previously discussed. It's about time resistance works in my favor. This buys me time to get Gengar powered up. Now that he is, I think Gene can only stare at me with his unopening eyes. I just have to be wary of his big hitters. I knock Rhyhorn out. He brings up Onix. I try my best to set up damage on Graveler as I worry about the damage it can do. As for Onix, I'll worry about it later. Just know for now that it's not capable of any significant issues. I can overcome it. I manage to gust it up and knock it, and Gene decides to bring up Onix again. Onix isn't too big of a threat of me, but it does have Harden, which reduces my damage. Plus Power eliminates that problem, however, so it's best to deal with them when I have those at the ready. I decided to keep the momentum going and gust up another Pokemon. Rhyhorn unfortunately prevents me from attacking too while he gets another Graveler out. Graveler and most certainly Golem do have the capability of hitting past resistance, so I'm not happy about that. As a reminder, Rhyhorn's attack affects Gengar, so even Gust doesn't even save me from its effect. My only option is to sit here and wait for him to fail a flip, or get Gengar to the bench to nullify Leer. You know, let's do the later by playing Switch into Ghastly, then retreating back into Gengar. I do knock Rhyhorn out, but he brings up Onix and uses Harden. I can't believe just how hard he is stalling me. Although, I guess it's all he can do against me at this point. But I say no and gust up Graveler. Then I use Dark Mind, leaving it with 10 HP left. With the help of Curse, I'm able to knock Graveler. With 2 prizes left, I'm already materializing victory. Geodude should be easy to 2-shot with ample opportunity to curse damage elsewhere with its 50 HP. I can curse damage off Geodude next turn and still knock it. I then notice he played Digwit and decided to stockpile damage there since its HP is so low. In addition, Dugtrio is a scary attacker which I don't want to deal with. Next turn, I curse damage on the Digwit for last prize. And that was my first try against Gian. As expected, that was the easiest club so far. From there, I move on to the Water Club. I believe these decks are pretty heavily water-based, but I don't expect much issue, as long as there isn't any darn normal types. They have easily become my least favorite type in this darn challenge. Now let's go ahead and talk about Amanda. Yeah, she plays cute little 40 HP Poliwigs. They aren't too difficult to deal with, but then I realized she plays the good old friend Wigglytuff as well. Setting up is kind of a grind of manually powering up Ghastly. Nothing too exciting to really speak about early on. This shifts to using Haunter, which has the power to prevent an attack on coin flip. RNG falls on my side this time as well. I can't help but worry about all the time I'm giving her to set Wigglytuff. I ponder, do I take Poliwag now or wait until I have something better on the board? I decide just to take Poliwag. After Poliwag, she brings it up and walls my Haunter. It's at this point I realize this is a 3-prize game. I've knocked out a Poliwag already, and she has 2 more already on the board. I just have to gust them up before Wigglytuff pancakes me. I evolve into Gengar and do the 30-10 Dark Mind attack after gusting up a Poliwag. I use Curse to get damage on Poliwag for knockout. I then manage to score a Gust for the other Poliwag. Now, as long as I can keep Gengar, never mind, she trolls me with Potion, and retreats, and puts me to sleep. Really laying it thick there, Amanda. Thankfully, I flip heads to wake up, and still manage to get another Gust for game. After that, I had no issues with the Water Club until matching off against Amy, the Water Leader. Believe it or not, Amy actually ended up being the first trainer I had trouble with for reasons other than normal Pokemon. Why, you may ask? Let's play the match. I go first and my start is fairly decent. I managed to get Ghastly and Mewtwo out with the signature turn 1 energy absorb for 2 energy. It wasn't hard with a Bill and an Oak. Can't say I'm afraid of Goldeen either. He starts with Goldeen, but elects to have it be a sacrificial lamb while she powers up a bench Squirtle. I get Gengar out and choose to get a second Mewtwo powered up. I thought about gussing up a Squirtle, but then decided to just take the Goldeen. She promotes Squirtle and... oh no, I'm paralyzed due to Squirtle's attack. I decided I can't do anything but disrupt her by removing the water energy. At least I have a second Mewtwo all powered up, but whoa. She plays Pokemon Breeder and evolves her Squirtle directly into her star player, Blastoise. Blastoise has one of the most broken powers, arguably in the existence of the game. Normally you can only attach 1 energy per turn. Blastoise, yeah, it lets you attach as much water as you want to your water Pokemon in a turn. No trade-offs or questions asked. It is really good at powering up a Pokemon instantly as long as you have the energy in hand. And Amy plays a ton of energy, plus a ton of energy recycling trainers. She dumps all her energy in her hand onto her Pokemon, then manages to drop an Oak for even more water. And yeah, I'm still paralyzed. I pass and she decides that she's done paralyzing me and brings up Blastoise. Now let's pause here. Blastoise's attack is a little complicated, so let's explain it. For 3 energy, it will do 40 damage. However, if she has additional water past the 3, the attack gets a plus 10 boost up to 2 times. That means for 3 energy, it does 40. For 4 energy, it does 50. And for 5 energy, it does 60. However, 60 is the max damage the attack can do, not factoring external factors. She then plays Super Energy Removal to remove 2 energy off my bench Mewtwo before knocking my active one. All I can do is Energy Absorb my second Mewtwo. She hits me for 50. I don't have much resources in my hand. I decide one option available to me is to set up another Gengar. I then plus power hit Blastoise for 50. She retaliates by knocking out my second Mewtwo. I'm officially out of options. I choose to promote Ghastly for his free retreat before I bring up Gengar, which should spare me a couple turns at least. She maxes the damage output on Blastoise. I finally draw the Psychic and attach it to Mewtwo before switching into it for an Energy Absorb. I should survive by 10 HP. Blastoise, however, has 50 left. It survived a hit from Mewtwo by 10 as well. She does indeed hit me for 60. I draw an item finder, which I use to ult for a new hand. Thankfully, I get a Psychic, so I start setting up Gengar, remove the energy from Wartortle, and computer search for plus power, doing just enough to knock out Blastoise. She knocks me out with Horsea, but I have Gengar now ready to attack. Not wanting to risk another Blastoise, I guss up Wartortle and start to chip away at it. She flips heads with Withdraw, so I can't actually hit it this turn. I can still curse damage onto it though. Darkmine also won't hit Wartortle, but I can still hit the bench Pokemon for 10. She potions away the damage on the benched Horsea, meaning I can't knock the active one out anymore. I also fail to attack due to Smokescreen, which prevents the damage on a coin flip. I attack, but she evolves the Horsea into Seadra. I use Curse to knock Horsea, and she promotes Squirtle, which works in my favor. Now, as long as she has no potions or ability to evolve into Wartortle, that'll be another Squirtle down. She goes and gets Tails for Paralyze, and I go and leverage Curse for knock on Squirtle. One prize left with many 40 HP Pokemon on the bench. I think we got this. I Dark Mine again, and she retreats and just passes. Doesn't matter, Curse will get the final knockout, and that is game. Blastoise was scary, but I barely managed to squeeze past it. The Fighting Club leader, Mitch, is now the last thing between me and the symbolic Elite Four of this game. How will the match go? I expect it to be pretty easy. He starts with Hitmonlee. I have a great hand, and through a combination of computer searches and all, I'm able to get the turn 1 Energy Absorb. I decide just how greedy I want to get. If I can get Gengar going with its fighting resistance, I'm not sure Mitch has much of a fighting chance to stop me. Cue the tomato throw for the bad pun. Either case, I do manage to get Ghastly out before ending my turn. If Lady Luck wants to bestow a Gengar to me while Mewtwo hits everything for 80, that's fine with me. I wouldn't mind. Mitch has nothing. I think all that's left for me to do now is to sweep him with Mewtwo. Hitmonlee is now gone. He promotes the second one and kicks my bench. I knock out the second Hitmonlee. He brings up Mankey and passes, and that's game. What else can I say? That was the easiest club fight so far, and right before we face the Grandmasters. Now, for those who don't know, Grandmasters are positioned just like the Elite Four. Each person symbolizes one of the legendary Pokemon cards: Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Dragonite, while the champ plays a deck with all four. If I lose to any of them, I go back to the first Grandmaster. The Dragonite player resists Psychic as their primary type and is the fourth player, while the champion also plays the same Dragonite. I am absolutely nervous about grinding my way past the first three, only for 4 and 5 to be the true challenges. I'm honestly not sure what my options will be. That being said, I just go for it. Courtney is the first Grandmaster, and her deck focuses entirely on fire types. I can honestly say I'm not too worried about facing her. At most, she may annoy me with her Magmars, which can stall me out. Either case, we're starting Ghastly against Magmar. I have no options to get Mewtwo. It takes me a bit of time to figure out how to Energy Absorb, but I do finally manage to pull it off. I computer search into an Oak, which I immediately use. However, the resulting hand is also garbage, so I use the second Oak. It takes me a bit to decide the best course, and I computer search for Psychic so I can retreat and attack. Fair enough. Courtney uses Smokescreen, so I have to flip for my attacks. Unfortunately, I flip Tails. She Smokescreens me again. Playing this game, I see. I try again and fail. Again, she annoys me with Smokescreen. I just decide to retreat to Gengar and bypass Smokescreen's effect. I get Smokescreened again. I decide to start off putting damage to her Ninetales. I think can effectively flip 8 coins and do 10 for each heads. So I don't want to risk getting hit by it too often. I successfully attack and hurt Magmar again. She again goes for Smokescreen, but I still flip heads. I forgot to curse. Magmar now being gone, she brings up Ninetales and goes for its attack. She manages to get 4 heads out of her 8 for 40 damage. And that is okay. Knowing the computers, it could have been worse. I retreat back to Mewtwo and Cyburn for a knockout. Growlithe comes up next, but she doesn't have any resources to fight me now. I start to sweep with Mewtwo while using Curse to set up knockouts elsewhere. Growlithe number 1 goes down and she promotes Growlithe number 2. I just keep attacking and saving my resources in case a huge threat comes up. My hand literally has all 4 Gusts, which I want to sit on. Growlithe goes down and she brings up Vulpix. He hits me for 10 and thankfully doesn't confuse me. Down to my last prize, he tries to save herself with Moltres. I have all the Gusts just in case, and I bring up Vulpix for knock. Steve is my next opponent who specializes in Electric and Zapdos. Looking at his deck, I can tell the only annoyance will be Eevee, which resists Psychic, then has a Tail Wag attack for a 50% chance to stop my attack. Otherwise, it won't hurt me too much. I start Ghastly off the bat against Electabuzz. I do manage to get Mewtwo out. Things aren't looking exactly the best for me, however. I have no energy or draw available, so I pass. Steve immediately drops his famed legendary Zapdos card. Now this Zapdos has an interesting power. When it hits the bench, it can hit a random Pokemon for 30. It can be my Pokemon or his. Suspiciously enough, it is Ghastly, then he strikes me with Electabuzz. I decide to stall by gussing up a Zapdos. I need so much energy to attack, so I hope it can buy me some time. Time passes and Zapdos gradually starts to power up. I'm not even sure I have a plan for when it does. Talk about a total deck brick. Steve retrieves energy from the discard pile and goes for the Zapdos attack. Zapdos knocks Haunter out. Meanwhile, I still don't have enough energy. I struggle to decide which Mewtwo I want to save. My damaged one with the energy or the fresh one. I decide it's best to let them have the fresh one. Steve continues to pummel away at me. And Steve just goes for the kill. I gotta say, I didn't expect this to be the challenging Grandmaster. Either case, going into round 2 with Steve, things go much better. Steve drops down to Zapdos, but he thankfully hits his own Eevee, which he then potions. Unfortunately, he then paralyzes Mewtwo, then paralyzes again. Maybe energy removal will break my Groundhog Day. Nope, it didn't. He's starting coin flips the computers get. Finally, he flips tails, but I have so much damage now. I decide to computer search my awful hand away for Oak, which I get options to power up Haunter. These are still not the cards I'm looking for though. I don't want Steve to get a second energy on Electabuzz. I just needed to get Tails for Paralyze, and will I get it? Here's the drum roll. I do. Okay, we have a game. I play Oak, hoping to either get a Gengar or a Mewtwo. I get neither, but I do get Trader. So I swap Ghastly for Gengar. I decide Gengar is more valuable right now. I take Electabuzz and he promotes Eevee. Tail Wake succeeds to prevent my attack. I'm over my options and decide to try getting Eevee in knockout range. Eevee can't stop Curse after all, no matter how cute. He evolves a Jolteon and goes for Quick Attack, which knocks Mewtwo. I have Item Finder and a ton of breeders, so I dump them so I can double plus power knock the Jolteon. He unfortunately has another Eevee. Now what do I do? Tail Wake fails though. I decide for now to get damage on the bench while Eevee isn't a threat. Eevee continues to Tail Wake like some sort of cute Pokemon and stall my moves. I don't really trust it though. Again, I find myself cursing the Fluff Ball in the hopes that I can stack enough damage to knock it. All I can really do until my deck gives me something better to do. Eventually, I get Gust, which I use to bring up Zapdos. Now I can freely start destroying Zapdos while going for Eevee on the bench. Looking at the math, I should be able to knock Zapdos and the Eevee out at the same time for 2 prizes, and I succeed in doing just that. Team brings up Voltorb, which should be an easy knockout with 40 HP. I retreat to Mewtwo and just knock it. 1 prize to go. 2 Cyberns should take out Mewtwo, and we finally beat Steve on our second attempt. Jack is the 3rd Grandmaster who specializes in water and Articuno. When we look at his deck, most of the cards seem, well, manageable. There are 5 gigantic concerns I have though, as he plays 3 Chanseys and 2 Diddles. Both resist Psychic. Maybe he won't get him out though. Okay, Mewtwo start is great, but are you kidding me? He gets Chansey start? Deep breaths. He has a Ditto too? Great. I gust up the Lapras as it's the only thing I can actually fight and go for the Energy Absorb. Pretty convenient setup of Oaking a Psychic and then computer searching away 2 more Psychics. I can then Oak again to pull yet another Psychic so that I can attack. I love it. Mewtwo is now ready to go as Lapras stings me for 10 damage. I take out half of Lapras's HP while he drops another Lapras. I think about going for an Oak, but I know I'll need the Item Finder to recycle Gust. Taking out Lapras indeed reveals the return of Chansey, so I Item Finder and Gust the other Lapras before Oaking my empty hand away. I dent Lapras and get retaliated for 10 damage. I just decide to knock the second Lapras and now I see Diddle. I get it for 10, and now I have to decide what to do. There is no way I'm going to 10 Diddle to death before it morphs. At the same time, it can morph into something far worse than Diddle. I guess we don't always get what we want. I'd rather not let Mewtwo get smacked until that point. I decided to bring up Haunter and try to stall for a bit, but then he morphs into Articuno. Not too painful. His first attack hits a Ghastly, which isn't too bad. I retreat into Mewtwo and just decide to strike Articuno. This time, it does manage to hit Mewtwo with Ice Breath. I really don't want to get hit again. Articuno has 60 HP left, so I decide to double plus power just to get rid of it. I refuse to risk another hit. Chansey is now active again. I have Gust in hand for Lapras and attack it. I get it for 10, but I'm easily able to knock out the 3rd Lapras. I now have 2 prizes left, so things are going well. Again, Chansey comes up. I Gust up Articuno this time. I accidentally passed, but nothing really significant happens on his turn anyway. Now it's time to talk about Articuno's power, Quick Freeze. It has a chance to paralyze me when he plays it onto the bench. I take Articuno for my 5th prize. When he finally drops Articuno, he doesn't get it, but then he plays Scoop Up, which lets him pick up Articuno, and then he drops it down again for another Quick Freeze attempt. This time he does get to paralyze. Now that Mewtwo has 10 HP left and is paralyzed against the Ditto, I start to look at my contingency plan. Jack actually picks up Articuno for a 2nd scoop but doesn't play it again. I bring up my other Mewtwo and power it up while gusting up the other Articuno. He does try saving Articuno by switching into Ditto, and he tries to paralyze me too but fails. Now if I can just get a Gust, I'm just going to top deck it. Gust up Articuno in game. First try victory, but certainly annoying. Moving on to Rod. He's the 4th Grandmaster, and possibly the one I fear the most. Let's put his deck on screen here. I really think they wanted to make Rod's deck similar to Lance with Gyarados, Dragonite, and Charizard. However, I anticipate the most trouble from his Kangaskhan's, which Lance didn't have. Dragonite also resists Psychic, so this should be a very annoying match. If I can knock the Dratinis early, that'll help. Thankfully, they only have 40 HP, even if they do resist Psychic. I start with Ghastly. Not ideal, but I'll work through it some. Oh, come on now. Why do they always manage to start with these Pokemon? It's not fair. Well, at least he has a Lapras I can wail on. Rod goes for the turn 1 fetch to draw cards. Thankfully, I do get a computer search, and I scheme on what I can search for to help me the most. I decide to use it to get Mewtwo, then attach energy to it. I enter a move to force him to attach to Kangaskhan again. He attaches and then fetches. I get energy and lick. This time I actually get hits to paralyze. Finally, I get my 3rd energy for Mewtwo. I retreat and start getting damage on the board. I keep trying to damage Kangaskhan, hoping that I can at least use the damage for Curse later. I decide to use Item Finder for computer search, hoping to get enough cards to search for Oak. I do top deck Bill, but get my first Gust off it. I think of using Gust, but decide I want the new hand more. Thankfully, I do draw another Gust and bring up Lapras. I might as well play another Mewtwo for the heck of it. I strike Lapras, and he retreats for Dratini. Because Rod really wants to make sure I'm dosed up on my Psychic resistance, I think I've met far more than my quota, unfortunately. I go for Gust again, and take Lapras out. Dratini comes out and hits me for 10. No more Dratini. Bad Rod. I draw in the Gust and use it to bring up Charmander. Charmander retreats for Dratini again. I pull another Gust. I think about it for a moment before deciding to bring up the undamaged Charmander before ulking. Awesomely, I get Breeder, Gengar, and plus power. I start by using Curse to knock out the bench Charmander. Then I play plus power to one-shot the other Charmander. Dratini comes back. At this point, I see he has 2 Magikarps on the bench. That 30 HP is too enticing not to go for, and I start loading Curse damage onto it while I chip away at Dratini. Is it the right play? Hard to say. Dratini isn't too threatening, but Dragonair and even Dragonite would be dreadful. Let's just get the fish. I Curse knock out the first Magikarp for my 4th prize, before doing another 10 on Dratini. Although, seeing double colorless on Dratini is nerve-wracking. I continue to Curse the other Magikarp. Dratini finally knocks out Mewtwo after repeated hits. I thankfully have my 2nd Mewtwo ready, and I hit Dratini for 10. Now I should be able to win the next turn if things go right. I have 2 plus powers in hand to knock Dratini, and 10 damage on Kangaskhan so I can Curse Magikarp for the 2nd knockout. Now we're going to have a bit of a pause. For some dumb reason, I thought I needed a 3rd plus power to knock the Dratini, so I draw through my entire deck only to realize it's not in there. My heart started racing because I'm hosed if I can't win this turn. I no longer have a deck. It sucked to have to go back to the start just because of 10 damage. I can't believe I messed up this bad. Eventually I come to my senses. I just knocked a darn noodle out. What a sigh of relief. I just have one more fight before we can close the curtain on this challenge. Will Ronald be beatable? If we look at his deck, you can now see it trophies all 4 legendary cards. That's not too big of a problem other than that Dragonite. He does play 2 Kangaskhan though. There's also 4 EVs. Why do so many people have to play so much Psychic Resistance? Okay, let's start. Mewtwo start is great. I have a couple of draw options. What? I swear this was rigged. He goes and fetches. I check his field and realize they're all colorless Pokemon. Nothing I can really fight. Well, let's Energy Disrupt him. I attach Psychic, then Item Finder 2 Psychics for the energy removal back. Now let's Energy Absorb. He fetches. I start chipping at Kangaskhan while he continues to fetch for a bit. Like before, I may be able to curse the damage to other Pokemon later. Speaking of, I need more Pokemon. I thin through my deck and I do finally get a Ghastly. Ronald plays another Dratini down and starts to remove my energy. Ronald decides to trade away an Articuno in his hand for Vaporeon, which he immediately evolves. Hey, finally something I can attack. I don't have Gust in hand, so I attempt to Oak for it, and I get Item Finder. Good enough. I Gust up Vaporeon and hit it for 40. He retreats for Dratini and starts to ding me. This is okay for now. I can start damaging Dratini. Either to get it to knockout range or to curse damage off it later. I do draw energy removal and decide to use it on double colorless. That energy is way too good and I don't want to see it. I do draw Oak. I don't want to get too greedy as I'm already in an okay spot right now. He drops Articuno and paralyzes me, of course. I now decide to Oak and see if I can get a switch. I don't, but I do get Gengar, which is almost as good. I use Curse to knock to bench Vaporeon. He hits me for 10, and I know I can use Curse to knock out to Dratini now. He brings up Dratini number 2. I say no and Gust up to Articuno. He drops Moltres this time and uses it to get some fires from his deck due to its power. I really don't care at this point. I do a little math in my head. Regardless, Articuno will be a 3-shot, so I start to curse damage off Articuno to the bench. It looks like Articuno is stuck and incapable of doing anything, so that helps a ton. I continue to curse the Dratini before finally knocking Articuno out. He brings up Dratini, which works in my favor. He also drops Zapdos and hits Moltres. 1+ bar is all I need to take the second Dratini. I do button mash on accident and attach a 4th energy to Mewtwo. Of course, he brings up Moltres and is fully powered up. I feel nervous at this point. I use Curse to move damage off Moltres to Zapdos before going for Mewtwo's attack. Now I just need to take out one more Pokemon. Jotan comes up, which finally puts Mewtwo down. I ponder for a bit and decide to Gust up Zapdos. It can't hurt me, so that's a plus right now. If he doesn't retreat it, I think I can win right here, and he fails to retreat it. I need to do 50 for knockout, but I have no damage to bring in from Curse. One more turn of not retreating and we win. Tyburn, and that is my 6th prize. I have pulled off this crazy challenge. I wasn't sure if it could be done, but this video will be evidence that it can be done. So, how well did I do? Playtime seems to be registered at 3 hours and 49 minutes. Is that a good time? It's hard to say. At this point, I have no real challenges to gauge it against. My normal playthrough took me about 8 hours, but that was starting with a poor starter deck. I also didn't rush that playthrough like I did here. If we look at speedruns, it looks possible to beat the game in just under an hour. I'm sure that's with glitches and RNG exploits to get that number. I say for now to keep this 3 hours and 49 minutes in the back of our heads, and we can compare it against other challenges later. In all honesty, I didn't think this challenge would be that hard. In fact, I thought Mewtwo would just sweep the game, making Gengar completely unnecessary. In the end, I just didn't think of all the normal types being the bane of my existence. When I play this game normally, I invest pretty heavily in fighting types, which they are all weak to. Most likely I just forgot about them. All I can say is I'm glad this is over. That being said, I could go over to Challenge Hall, but I have to call the challenge off somewhere, I think. And this is a good point, I think. If you made it this far into the video, I appreciate you taking the time to watch through to the end. If you're willing to help me out a little more, I would deeply enjoy it. Please tell me what challenge you'd like to see me do next time in the comments section. Also, please like this video and subscribe to help the distribution of this. That may attract more people to suggest more challenge ideas, and headache-inducing challenges is just what the doctor ordered. If we get enough interested parties, I may livestream these events as well. That's a thought for the future, though. All I can say is I'm ready for a small break. Until next time, take care, everyone. Bye!